Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I want to ask you something that might sit uncomfortably in your chest. Have you ever had that strange, sinking feeling that the woman lying next to you is drifting further and further away, even while her body is still warm beside yours? Maybe you've brushed it off. Maybe you told yourself you were just being paranoid or too sensitive. Maybe you've heard her excuses, "I've just been so tired lately." Or you're imagining things, "I've just been busy." Or you're overthinking again. But deep down, in a place you don't talk about with your friends, you know something isn't right. Her touch doesn't feel the same. Her laughter lands differently. And when she looks at you, it's like she's peering through you, searching for someone else in your shadow. This video isn't about blame. It's not about anger either. It's about truth. And I promise you this, the truth won't destroy you. The denial will. That's why we're going to talk, honestly, openly, about the 7 excuses women make when they're sleeping with someone else. Not to humiliate them, and certainly not to demonize them, but to bring you back to your own clarity. Because your self-worth is not negotiable, your intuition isn't wrong, and your time, your love is sacred. So if you're ready to look past the words and into the emotional undercurrents, if you're tired of playing dumb to preserve something that's already broken, stay with me, because this might be the most important conversation you've had in years. You know, relationships are beautiful until they become confusing. And what's more confusing than loving someone who's no longer truly with you, even when they say they are? There's a moment, maybe it happens at the dinner table, maybe in bed, maybe when you hear her laugh just a little too loudly at someone else's joke, where something inside you tightens. You feel like you're chasing a version of her that doesn't exist anymore. You ask yourself, what changed? Is it me? Is it her? Or is it us? I want to start this conversation not with accusation, but with reflection, because this isn't about catching someone. This is about honoring what your gut already knows. And for men, especially those of you who've built your lives around being the provider, the protector, the one who doesn't complain, it can be difficult to admit when something feels off. You were taught to endure, not to feel. But when a woman starts creating distance with her words and covering it with gentle lies or tired excuses, your endurance becomes your prison. So let's name the silence. Let's gently pull the mask off the behavior that's eating away at you. Because you deserve to know, and you deserve better. Let's start with the first excuse she often makes when she's sleeping with someone else. She says, "I'm just really busy right now." And of course, it sounds reasonable. Everyone is busy. Work is stressful. Her calendar is packed. She's tired, stretched thin, barely has time to breathe. But you notice something, you're no longer part of the business. Her stress doesn't include you. Her urgency seems to grow the moment you ask for her time. And when you do get a slice of her attention, it feels distracted, like she's mentally elsewhere, because she probably is. Being busy is one of the safest emotional alibis. It doesn't trigger suspicion. It sounds like ambition, like responsibility. But behind it there may be avoidance, especially if you once were her priority. And now you're penciled in, if at all. The truth is, when a woman is interested, no schedule is too full to send a loving message, to return a call, to crawl into bed just to touch your back. And when she's not, busy becomes the perfect escape hatch. It makes her absence seem virtuous. It masks emotional withdrawal as adult responsibility. But here's the part that stings sometimes. She's not actually busy. She's just engaged elsewhere. Her attention, her curiosity, her desire, they're pouring out, just not in your direction. And I don't say this to make you feel smaller. I say this to make you aware. Because emotional infidelity doesn't always announce itself. It hides behind schedules. It tiptoes in through late meetings and vague plans. It uses your trust in her discipline against you. Now, let's move gently into another common excuse, one that hits closer to the heart. She says, "I just need some space." Now listen, everyone needs space. Independence is healthy. But space, when used to avoid intimacy, becomes emotional exile. This isn't the kind of space that says, "I need to recharge." It's the kind that says, "Don't ask questions." It's the kind that comes with longer silences, shorter answers, and a mysterious new boundary that feels more like a wall. And here's where it gets tricky. When a woman is seeing someone else, space becomes a shield for her divided emotions. She's not ready to confess. She might still be deciding. She might feel guilt. But she's also feeling excitement, something new, something intoxicating, and that disorients her loyalty to you. She doesn't want to hurt you. And so she buys herself time. And space is the currency. So you're left holding the emotional bag, wondering if you did something wrong, analyzing your texts, second-guessing every word. Meanwhile, she's already stepped into another story, one you don't have access to. You're trying to hold on to a relationship that is slowly unspooling at its edges while she politely, and sometimes even lovingly, asks for room to figure herself out. But relationships aren't about disappearing to find yourself. They're about growing together. Space should be expansive, not evasive. It should deepen connection, not erase it. And I want to speak to the man watching this who's trying so hard to be patient. You think if you give her space, she'll come back. And sometimes she might, but other times that space is just a soft, silent exit. And you deserve to recognize when you're being left behind with kindness instead of truth. Let's go a little deeper now. She tells you, I'm just not in the mood lately. Maybe it's hormones. I don't know now. Physical intimacy is a sensitive topic. Desire ebbs and flows. Stress, mental health, medical issues, they all play a part. And yet, when sexual disinterest is prolonged and unaccompanied by emotional closeness or open dialogue, something is often wrong underneath. When a woman is intimately involved with someone else, her relationship to touch changes, and it shows up in small ways: the way she moves away from your hand, the way she turns over in bed, the way she avoids long hugs that used to linger. She may genuinely not know how to explain the shift. She may tell herself it's hormonal or stress-related, but sometimes the truth is more inconvenient. Her sensuality hasn't disappeared. It's just been redirected. And I need you to hear this clearly. Your value is not determined by her desire. Her lack of touch doesn't mean you're undesirable. It doesn't mean you're broken. But it might mean she's emotionally elsewhere. And if her only explanation is vague discomfort without any desire to reconnect, it might be time to look beneath the surface. Because sexuality is more than just physical. It's emotional presence. It's attention. It's that look in her eye that used to say, "You are mine." When that look fades and no new invitation appears, it may not be because her body's asleep. It may be because her desire has awakened somewhere else. What do you do in these moments? You pause. You breathe. You stop begging for breadcrumbs. And you begin the quiet process of reclaiming your worth. Because love cannot thrive where truth is absent. And intimacy cannot exist in a house built on avoidance. Let me tell you something that might hurt before it heals. If she is sleeping with someone else, she's not always doing it out of malice. Sometimes it's confusion. Sometimes it's loneliness. Sometimes it's about something in her, not you, that's searching for identity, for validation, for escape. That doesn't make it okay, but understanding it will give you your power back. Because the moment you stop seeing yourself as the problem is the moment you start becoming the man you were meant to be. There's a certain kind of silence that creeps in between two people who once couldn't stop talking, a stillness that feels more like distance than peace. And sometimes it doesn't arrive with an argument or a declaration. It arrives cloaked in kindness, in excuses, in softened truths that are easier to swallow than reality. But your body knows, your intuition aches, and you start reading between every line. Now let's talk about another phrase you might have heard, one that on the surface seems so innocent, so supportive. She says, "You're just overthinking it." That one can cut deeper than we admit. Because in that moment, she's not just dismissing your concern, she's making you doubt your own emotional compass. And once you start questioning what you feel, you begin surrendering your voice. This excuse is powerful because it flips the script. Suddenly, you're the one who's insecure. You're too sensitive. You're making something out of nothing. And because you love her, because you want to believe in the relationship, you accept the blame. You silence yourself for the sake of peace. But what you're really doing is trading your clarity for comfort. Overthinking becomes the new label for your intuition. But let me ask you this: when has your gut ever whispered for no reason? When has your chest ever tightened without some emotional signal telling you something here isn't right? Women who are emotionally invested in the relationship don't silence their partner's concern. They listen. They lean in. They might not agree, but they care enough to explore the fear behind your words. When she's brushing you off with phrases like, "You're imagining things," it often means there's something she doesn't want to reveal, something she's trying to control, not confess. And I'm not saying this always means she's cheating, but when her empathy shuts down, when her compassion is replaced with deflection, it's a red flag. And often behind that flag is a story she hasn't shared with you yet. Let's move into one that almost always comes with a smile, a laugh, or a sense of familiarity. She says, "He's just a friend." Those 4 words have become the anthem of so many affairs, haven't they? It's tricky because friendships, especially male-female friendships, can be beautiful, platonic, deeply enriching, but sometimes they're also the staging ground for emotional affairs. And emotional affairs often start innocently. She tells him about her day. He listens. He validates her. Maybe he compliments her when you've forgotten to. Maybe he becomes the one who makes her laugh when things feel heavy at home. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, her emotional world shifts toward him. She doesn't always intend to betray you. Sometimes she doesn't even realize she's doing it. But her energy, her secrets, her inside jokes, her need to feel seen, drifts from your orbit into someone else's. And when you bring it up, she reassures you, "He's just a friend." But if that friend knows more about her inner world than you do, if he gets the side of her you used to have exclusive access to, if she lights up when his name pops up on her phone, then he's not just a friend. He's an emotional surrogate. The problem is not that she has a friend. The problem is when that friendship becomes her new sanctuary. And you become the obligation, the one she has to show up for, while he becomes the one she chooses to laugh with, flirt with, dream with. And often that emotional affair becomes physical. Not always, but often. Because desire follows attention. And when her attention is no longer on you, neither is her intimacy. So what do you do when she says, "He's just a friend"? You don't accuse. You don't attack. You ask yourself, have I become emotionally replaceable in her life? And if the answer feels like yes, you begin reconnecting with your own self-worth, not to punish her, not to win her back, but to reawaken the man who deserves to be chosen, not tolerated. There's another one, subtle but deeply revealing. She tells you, I just need to work on myself right now. And on the surface, this sounds noble. Who could argue with self-work? We all need time to grow. But here's what you need to look out for. Does her personal development involve you? Or is it an exit plan disguised as evolution? You see, when someone truly wants to grow while staying connected, they invite you into the process. They say, I'm working on myself and I hope we can grow together. But when it becomes, I need space to find myself, and you're left in emotional limbo, it's often a gentle separation rather than a real transformation. And sometimes that self-work includes exploring new connections, new experiences, new men, and they soothe their guilt by convincing themselves they're doing it for their growth. That somehow cheating becomes a pathway to self-discovery. It's heartbreaking, isn't it? To realize that while you were holding space for her healing, she was building something new outside the relationship. But I want to tell you this, because it's important. Your support is not a permission slip. Your patience is not a pass for betrayal. If she's truly working on herself, it will show up in how she communicates, in how she takes responsibility, in how she honors your presence, not erases it. So when she uses the excuse of self-growth to disengage from intimacy, take a deeper look, because transformation doesn't require secrecy, and healing doesn't demand disconnection. And now, let me share with you one of the most quietly damaging things a woman can say when her heart and body are no longer fully yours. She whispers, I just don't want to hurt you. That sentence sounds like compassion. But more often than not, it's a cover. Because if she truly didn't want to hurt you, she would tell you the truth. She would hold your heart with dignity, even if it meant breaking it. But when she says, I don't want to hurt you, what she really means is, I don't want to feel like the bad guy. So instead she lies, or omits, or plays a role she's no longer committed to. She stays physically present but emotionally absent. She pretends everything is fine because she believes sparing your feelings is more merciful than being honest. But that mercy is laced with betrayal. And I want you to think about this, which hurts more, the wound of truth or the slow erosion of trust, because men, strong, loyal men like you, can survive the truth. What destroys you is the lie wrapped in kindness. When she says, I didn't want to hurt you, and yet she's been sleeping with someone else, understand this isn't about you. It's about her inability to face what she's done. It's about shame, guilt, fear, and yes, maybe even love, a broken, distorted kind. But love cannot be rooted in deception. That's not love. That's emotional manipulation dressed in tenderness. You deserve better than to be spared. You deserve the truth, even when it trembles, even when it breaks something inside you. Because it's only from that raw place, where the illusions are gone, that you begin to rebuild your strength. There's a kind of ache that's harder to name. Not the sharp pain of betrayal discovered, but the slow fade of presence, the soft unraveling of a connection that once made you feel safe, seen, wanted. And what makes that ache unbearable is when you're still trying while she's already emotionally gone. And so we arrive at one more phrase, a phrase that may seem benign, but carries with it a quiet cruelty when it's spoken in the wrong context. She says, you deserve better. Now think about that for a moment. She's telling you that you deserve more, that you deserve someone who will love you properly, who will see you, appreciate you, stay faithful to you. But what she doesn't say out loud is that she's no longer willing to be that person. Deserving better becomes her exit line, a poetic, almost noble way to step out of the bond you built together without having to own the full weight of what she's doing behind your back. It sounds selfless, but often it's a smokescreen, because if she truly believed you deserved better, she would have ended the relationship before stepping into someone else's bed. She would have honored your dignity, not handed you closure as a consolation prize. Sometimes you deserve better is her way of avoiding accountability, of painting herself as broken, confused, lost, anything but responsible. She wants to be forgiven without confessing. She wants to escape without being seen as cruel. So she hands you a truth that sounds like love but lands like a blade. It's not you. It's me. And here's what I want you to remember. She's right. You do deserve better, but not in the passive, helpless way she suggests. You deserve better because you are a man capable of deep love, loyalty, and emotional courage. Not because you want enough. For her confusion, you don't need a woman who offers half of herself while giving the other half away in secret. You don't need a love that walks on eggshells or hides behind poetic excuses. You need honesty. You need alignment. You need a partner who chooses you every single day because she wants to, not because she feels guilty not to. And maybe right now you're sitting in the wreckage of what you thought was your future. Maybe you're rereading texts, looking for clues, questioning if you missed the signs. Or maybe you saw the signs all along, but you loved her too much to believe them. That's okay. There's no shame in that. Love makes us hopeful. It makes us blind sometimes too. But you are not broken for trusting her. You are not weak for wanting to believe the best in someone. What makes you powerful is what you choose next. You can stay in denial. You can try to win her back. You can pretend these excuses were harmless, that maybe you were overthinking it. Or you can pause, breathe deeply and say no more shrinking, no more explaining away what your heart already knows. No more carrying the weight of someone else's dishonesty as if it's your own fault. You are not here to be a placeholder. You are not here to keep proving your worth to someone who keeps choosing another bed, another conversation, another emotional home. You are here to rise, to rediscover the man you were before confusion made you small, to reclaim your confidence, not the kind built on ego or domination, but the kind that says, I see myself clearly, and I will not beg to be loved. And for the men who are fathers, partners, brothers, sons, remember how you walk through this will echo through those who look up to you. Let them see that heartbreak doesn't make a man bitter. It makes him braver. Let them see that clarity is not cruelty, that boundaries are not punishment, that asking for loyalty is not being controlling, it's honoring your emotional contract. And maybe right now you're not ready to walk away. That's okay too. We don't always leave the first time our heart breaks, but just don't lie to yourself the way she has lied to you. Don't pretend it's something it's not. Don't bury your gut instinct beneath her gentle deception. Trust your knowing. You already have everything you need to move forward. Not because you're perfect. Not because you always knew what to say. But because somewhere deep inside you, the part of you that wants wholeness is waking up. And it will not let you stay where you are only tolerated. You're allowed to ask the hard questions. You're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to fall apart before you come back stronger. But what you're not allowed to do is pretend that these excuses, these clever, careful words, don't mean what they mean. They mean she's distracted. They mean she's not fully here. And in some cases, they mean she's giving herself to someone else while still sleeping in your bed. So what do you do now? You return to yourself. Slowly, gently, day by day. You surround yourself with truth tellers, not comfort givers. You lean into your friendships, your purpose, your physical strength, your spiritual practice, whatever reminds you that you are more than this moment. And maybe one day when your heart has healed a little more, you'll look back and thank her, not for betraying you, but for forcing you to meet the version of yourself that finally stopped settling for less. Because that man, the one who now refuses to ignore the truth, is unstoppable. He loves deeply, but not blindly. He sees clearly, but not cruelly. He leads with both strength and softness. And he never again allows excuses to define what he knows in his bones. If this spoke to you, I want to hear from you. Not because I need likes or views or comments, but because I know how isolating it feels when you start waking up from the illusion of love. And sometimes healing begins when you say it out loud. She wasn't who I thought she was, and I deserve more. If you've ever felt that, you're not alone. Drop a comment. Let your voice be heard. It may help someone else find theirs. And if you're new here, or if this resonated deeply, subscribe. This channel is a space for men who are ready to love without losing themselves, for men who lead with truth even when it hurts, for men like you. Take care of your heart, honor your gut, and never apologize for wanting loyalty in a world that treats it like an option. Here's to you, the man who listens and finally sees. There's something sacred about a man who refuses to collapse in the face of emotional chaos, not because he doesn't feel, but because he chooses to feel fully and keep standing anyway. By now, you've heard the words, you've seen the signs, you've probably lived through one, or many, of those moments when the woman beside you slowly started speaking in riddles. Her body said one thing, her mouth another, and her presence, her real, vibrant, connected presence, faded like fog at sunrise. And now you're left asking, what does it mean about me? Was I not enough? Did I miss something? Was I too available? Too trusting? And let me tell you something you might not hear from your boys, from your father, from the world. No, it wasn't because you were too soft, or too patient, or too open. The fact that you love deeply is not your flaw, it is your power. But now it's time to refine that power. You see, when a woman uses those excuses to cover up betrayal, she's not just hiding from you. She's hiding from herself. She's avoiding the confrontation of her own hunger, confusion, or cowardice. And that has nothing to do with your worth. But if you stay in that story, if you internalize it, obsess over it, reshape your identity around her rejection, you will unconsciously carry her lie into your next relationship. You'll walk through life with a soft limb, wondering if you can trust again, wondering if women are honest, wondering if love is always going to hurt like this. And that's where we begin again, not with her, but with you. There's a version of you that maybe you've lost touch with. The version who remembers what he wants, who knows what he deserves, who doesn't contort himself to be tolerable or pleasing or low maintenance. The version of you who leads, not with domination, but with grounded clarity. Because you, my dear man, are not here to beg for loyalty. You are here to inspire it. You don't inspire trust by control. You do it by being rooted in your values, in your presence, in your integrity. Women can feel that. They feel it in how you listen, in how you don't chase approval, in how you're not threatened by their independence, but also not afraid to name your standards. The next time you feel the creeping signs, the subtle distance, the "I'm just busy," the "you're overreacting," pause, don't yell, don't collapse, don't accuse. You look her in the eyes and say, "If you're not here fully, I'd rather walk away with my dignity than stay and beg for pieces of someone who already left." That is power. That is sovereignty. And that is the kind of man who becomes irresistible, not because of what he demands from women, but because of what he refuses to tolerate in himself. There's a fear in many men that if they speak up, they'll lose her. That setting boundaries makes them the villain. But here's the truth: the man who quietly allows betrayal in the name of peace is not preserving love. He's destroying himself. And let's be honest, some of you were raised to believe that a real man fixes things, that a strong man holds the relationship together even when it's bleeding. But what you weren't taught is this: sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from what no longer honors your soul. You weren't taught how to hold space for grief and grace at the same time, how to forgive without forgetting, how to release someone while blessing their path, and still never lose sight of your own. So if this is you, if you're in the midst of this storm, don't just survive it. Use it. Use it to refine your identity. Use it to reset your relationship with truth. Use it to build emotional muscles you didn't know you had. Take time alone, not the kind of lonely that numbs, but the kind that awakens. Let solitude become your sanctuary. Let the silence teach you what noise tried to drown out, that you are enough without needing to be chosen. Because when you rebuild your identity on the foundation of honesty, self-respect, and clear vision, the next time a woman steps into your life, she'll feel it. She'll feel that she's dealing with a man who isn't here to be adored. He's here to be aligned. And women respond to that. They respect that, even the ones who once wandered from it. This isn't about becoming cold. Don't harden. Don't lose your romantic heart. Don't punish every future partner for the one who lied. Instead, become wiser, more discerning, more deeply attuned to your own intuition, your gut, your body, your knowing. That knowing is sacred. And when you stop silencing it to avoid discomfort, it becomes your most powerful compass. And I'll say this again: not all women who say these things are bad people. Some are scared. Some are wounded. Some are trapped in their own unhealed trauma. This isn't about villainizing women. It's about honoring the impact of their choices on you. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to not understand how someone you trusted could lie to your face while lying in your bed. But then you breathe. You rise, and you remember that her confusion does not define your clarity. So take this moment, this message, as your turning point. You will never again apologize for trusting your instincts. You will never again beg for the affection that should be freely given. You will never again silence your truth just to avoid rocking the boat, because this time you're not afraid to swim on your own if the boat is sinking. You are a man, a full, emotional, complex, wise man, and you're allowed to want something real. There's something deeply sacred about a man who's walked through betrayal, not with vengeance, but with wisdom. A man who has seen what deception looks like behind a soft smile, who has watched love fade behind carefully chosen words, and still chooses not to close his heart, but to open it wider, with discernment, with courage, with love for himself first. By now you've heard the excuses. I'm just busy. I need space. You're overthinking. He's just a friend. I'm working on myself. I don't want to hurt you. You deserve better. And maybe you've heard one of them before, or maybe you've heard them all. Maybe you've tried to reason with them, to believe them, to fix yourself to fit inside them. But now, here you are, facing the truth not as a punishment, but as a pathway. The truth is not your enemy. The truth is your liberation, even when it breaks you. Because the truth is what gives you back to yourself. And I want to speak to the part of you that is tired. The part that stayed too long. The part that kept forgiving just to feel wanted. The part that buried questions because you were afraid of the answers. You are not foolish for loving. You are not weak for believing. What matters now is what you do with what you know. Because knowledge without action is still bondage. It keeps you stuck in cycles. It repeats old stories. But when you take that knowledge and let it shape your standards, your voice, your self-respect, you become a different kind of man. A man who no longer flinches at discomfort, who no longer fears confrontation, who no longer interprets someone's emotional absence as a cue to prove himself. That man doesn't chase, he chooses, and he is chosen in return, not out of guilt or pity, but out of admiration. You see, trust is not built on explanations. It's built on consistency, on honesty, on transparency. If you're constantly confused by someone's words, if their stories keep changing, if their energy feels slippery, it's not because you're slow, it's because they're not stable. And love, real love, feels safe. It doesn't mean perfect, but it does mean honest. And honesty isn't something you beg for. It's something someone offers when they respect you, when they know who they're dealing with. So let's talk about who you are now. You are no longer a man who accepts affection dipped in secrecy. You are no longer a man who loses sleep over someone else's emotional confusion. You are no longer a man who lets "I'm replace I care." You are no longer a man who accepts space as a replacement for connection. You are a man who sees, who knows, who acts. You've grieved. You've questioned, and now you've remembered. Remembered that your needs are not inconvenient, that your voice is not too much, that your desire for loyalty, for clarity, for touch that means something, that is not a burden, it is a standard. And here's the beautiful thing, when you raise your standards, the wrong people disappear. Yes, it will hurt, but they leave because they no longer have a place to hide. And in that empty space, something new emerges. Not just new love, but new confidence, new purpose, new self-respect. And I know, maybe you still miss her. Maybe you still think about the way she used to laugh, the way she held your hand, the plans you made together. That's normal. That's human. That's love. But love that is not mutual is not your home. You don't need to vilify her. You don't need to spend your life angry. But you do need to remember that the love you long for will never arrive in a house built on excuses. You can mourn her and still move forward. You can cry and still rise. You can remember her and still refuse to accept her lies as your truth. And for those of you who are still in the relationship, still questioning, still hoping, I want you to ask yourself this: what would I tell my best friend if he were in my shoes? What would I want my son to believe about himself in this moment? What kind of man do I want to be remembered as? The one who stayed silent in the face of betrayal, or the one who reclaimed his story? Because whether you leave or stay, you must do so with eyes wide open, not from fear, but from clarity. And to the man who's rebuilding, this is your season, the season of remembering your worth, the season of learning to sit with your own heart, the season of asking hard questions and not shrinking from the answers. This is where you begin to attract what you've been asking for, not through force, but through alignment, through the quiet confidence that says, I don't need someone to complete me. I am already whole. That man, you, is the kind of man who can lead, who can love again without losing himself, who can look back at this moment not as a wound, but as a turning point. So if this message reached you, if it spoke to a part of you that hasn't felt seen in a long time, I want you to do one thing. Write it in the comments: I choose truth. Not for me, for you, for the man inside you who has waited long enough to be heard, for the future you're about to walk into, stronger, clearer, and more deeply alive. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because this channel is for you, for the men who feel deeply, who love fiercely, who are ready to rise, not just for someone else, but for themselves. Like this video, share it with a brother who needs it, with a man who's questioning everything, with a man who just heard one of those excuses and finally wants to stop pretending. Let's stop settling for half loves. Let's stop apologizing for our standards. Let's stop sleeping beside ghosts and calling it intimacy. You deserve a woman who doesn't need space to decide if she loves you, who doesn't hand you excuses while giving someone else her energy. You deserve devotion, not confusion. You deserve peace, not performance. This is the end of the story where you stay silent, and the beginning of the story where you speak truth.